Well, what's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to take a look at Sam Langford, the Boston Tar Baby, and see why I have him ranked number one of the greatest fighter of all times. Now, I have him ranked very high for obvious and quite a few different reasons. But he's such an underrated fighter. I just want to diagnose his career just to see to myself why I have him ranked so high. Now, he was born March 4th, 1883 in Weymouth, Nova Scotia, Canada. He died January 12, 1956 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Now, Sam Langford stood 5 foot 8 inches and weighed 139 to 204 pounds. He was managed by Joe Woodman. Now, during his travels, he would collect the Colored Heavyweight Championship belt, Australian Heavyweight Championship belt, Mexico Heavyweight Championship belt, the Colored Middleweight Championship belt. Now, after studying Sam Langford for over 25 years, I've placed him number one, the greatest fighter of all times. Now, Sam Langford has faced the very best of his class, from the featherweight to the heavyweights. Along the way, Sam Langford would defeat the Colored Middleweight Champion, the Colored Heavyweight Champion, the Mexican Heavyweight Champion, and the Australian Heavyweight Champion. Now, a little bit before him, you had Peter Jackson, who was the Australian Heavyweight Champion. Peter Jackson was also the Colored Heavyweight Champion. Peter Jackson, one of the greatest fighters of all times. He would hold the Australian Heavyweight Championship as well as the Colored Heavyweight Championship. Sam Langford would face fighters such as George Godfrey, who was a Colored Heavyweight Champion, Bob Armstrong, Colored Heavyweight Champion, James Tut Jackson, phenomenal fighter, Lee Anderson, Colored Light Heavyweight Champion, Harry Wills several times, Colored Heavyweight Champion, George Cole, Colored Heavyweight Champion, Larry Temple was also the Colored Champion, Joe Jeanette, fantastic fighter, several times, Colored Champion, Heavyweight, young Peter Jackson, Colored Welterweight Champion, fought him several times, Jack McVeigh, Colored Heavyweight Champion, fought him several times. Sam McVeigh, unbelievable fighter, very underestimated. He was part of the Foursome Four. He fought Joe Jeanette several times. Part of the Foursome Four. Joe Jeanette, Colored Heavyweight Champion, the greatest fighters of all time. Now, Sam Langford would chase the World Lightweight Champion, Joe Gans. And he would defeat Joe Gans, but he didn't collect the title because he was overweight in that particular fight. So Joe Gans would keep his lightweight championship title belt. Sam Langford would go up to the welterweight division, and he would challenge the Barbados Demon, Joe Walcott. And after 15 rounds of boxing, they called it a draw. Sam Langford had that fight as well. He would face the Dixie Kid. Dixie Kid would become the light heavyweight champion. He would become the welterweight champion. Dixie Kid would become the welterweight champion of the world. Let me make that correction. Fascinating fighter was Dixie Kid. He would become welterweight champion of the world. He would face the middleweight champion of the world, Tiger Flowers, who would become the world middleweight champion when he defeated Harry Greb in 1926. He would defeat Tiger Flowers. He would face Harry Greb, who was a middleweight champion, Stanley Ketchel, who was middleweight champion. In fact, it was said that he defeated Stanley Ketchel, but they made it a draw as well. Stanley Ketchel had already had in his contract that he would not face a colored fighter for his belt. and they were going to have a rematch in 1910 before Stanley Ketchum would be shot by Walter Dipley. Sam Langford would never get his rematch for the middleweight championship of the world. He would move up to light heavyweight and face the light heavyweight champion, Philadelphia Jack O'Brien. He would defeat him as well. Title was not on the line. And he would fight fighters such as Porky Flynn, Tony Ross, Battling Jim Johnson, Jim Barry, Roughhouse Ware, Jeff Clark at least 10 times, Fred Fulton, Big Bill Tate, Cleve Hawkins, Ed Bearcat Wright, Jim Savage. Jim Savage was a white hope. He appeared in many movies. Fireman Jim Flynn. I want to show you something that I've collected with Fireman Jim Flynn. Now this is the scrapbook, a photo album of Fireman Jim Flynn and Ray Marshall. This came from an estate. And you have Fireman Jim Flynn and Ray Marshall. It's the original photo, July 13th, 1911. And these are the original membership cards where Fireman Jim Flynn would train. Here's a program, Jim Flynn versus Jack Johnson, Las Vegas, July 4th, 1912, 45 rounds. Big Flynn and Johnson contest. But Sam Langford would face Fred Fulton, Big Bill Tate, and Cleve Hawkins. He fought Fireman Jim Flynn 3 times. Now Sam Langford would have several accolades. Let's go through them. Canada's Sport Hall of Fame, 1955. The Ring Boxing Hall of Fame, 1955. Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame, 1955. He was inducted at all of these. International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. The middleweight champion of Wales. He was a Hall of Fame champion of Mexico, England, as well as Spain. He was the champion of each one of those cities and countries. World Colored Heavyweight Champion, 1910. He was a boxer of a half a century in Canadian press. Number 2 of Ring Magazine's list of boxers' top 100 punches of all times. Between 1906 and 1914, he won 85 of 87 bouts. Former featherweight champion Abe Attell says that Sam Langford was the greatest fighter he has ever seen. And I myself have Abe Attell as the top 2 greatest featherweight champions of all time. Now on April 11th, 1902, Sam Langford made his professional debut at the age of 16. He KO'd a fighter by the name of Jack McVicker. After 18 months, he earned a shot at the lightweight championship, facing Joe Gans. December 8th, 1903. Sam Langford would defeat Joe Gans, but he weighed over the 135-pound limit. On September 5th, 1905, he moved up to earn the welterweight championship shot. Now, he never got that belt from Joe Gans because he was overweight. So he lost out on that opportunity. But when he moved up to the welterweight class, he would face the Barbados Demon, Joe Walcott. After 15 rounds of boxing, the bout would be called a draw. The crowd couldn't believe it. Langford threw more and landed more punches. New York Illustrated News editor Arthur Lumpley reported from his ringside, he was right there at ringside, that Langford won by a landslide. 1906, Langford would challenge for the Colored Heavyweight Championship, facing Jack Johnson. After 15 rounds, Johnson would have one of the toughest fights of his career. And after he would win, the heavyweight championship from Tommy Burns in 1908. 2 years later, he would never give Sam Langford another opportunity, fearing that he would lose. Jack Johnson outweighed Sam Langford 20 pounds. Now let's take a look for a moment at Sam Langford's profile. And when you look at Sam Langford, and you can see here, Jack McVicker, 1902, January 13th, defeated him in 3 rounds. Now take a look at his career. 1903, look how many fights he fought. Lost 1 fight. That was to Danny Duane, June 26, in Boston, Massachusetts. Lost him in 12 rounds. He would have another loss, 1904. Dave Holly in Cambridge, April 11th, 1904. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. Dave Holly was an outstanding fighter. Now he fought Joe Walcott September 5th, 1904. He fought him in Manchester, and they would decide to call it a 15-round draw. Dave Holly, 15-round draw, September 30th, 1904. He fought Tommy Sullivan, knocked him out in 3 rounds. Jack Blackburn, December 9th, 1904, in Marlborough, 15-round draw. Many believed that Sam Langford had won that fight. He would face George Cole, colored heavyweight champion, no decision in 9 rounds, March 13th, 1905. He would face Larry Temple, July 4th, Marlborough. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. Larry Temple would be colored heavyweight champion. He would face Jack Blackburn, August 18th, and he would have a 15-round draw. For Blackburn again, another 10-round draw. It's in Allentown, Pennsylvania, September 21st, 1905. March 1st, 1906, he would face Larry Temple in Chelsea, knock him out in 15 rounds. March 19th, Black Fitzsimmons, Webster, knock him out in 11 rounds. We faced Joe Jeanette right after that, April 5th, 1906 in Chelsea. We defeat him in 15 rounds. So he was on a roll. April 26th, he would face Jack Johnson in Chelsea. We lose to him in 15 rounds. Young Peter Jackson, June 13th, 1906. Southbridge, lost to him in 15 rounds. November 12th, George Gunther, Valley Falls, and he would defeat him in 12 rounds. Young Peter Jackson, Rochester, he would knock him out in 5 rounds. 1907, Joe Jeanette, January 11th, Lawrence, 12-round draw. He would face Tony Ross, August 7th, in New York. He would knock him out in 5 rounds in 1908. Now I want to look ahead at something. Let's go to 1910. January 10th, he would face Dixie Kidd, Memphis, Tennessee. He would knock him out in 3 rounds. Dixie Kidd would become the welterweight champion of the world by defeating the Barbados Demon, Joe Walcott. February 8th, he would face Fireman Jim Flynn, Los Angeles, California. No decision in 10 rounds. Now I want to get to Stanley Ketchel. April 27th, Stanley Ketchel, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They decided to make it a no decision in 6 rounds. And as I said, many felt that Sam Langford had defeated Stanley Ketchel. But Stanley Ketchel didn't have his belt on the line anyway. He put in his contract that the belt was not on the line. Battling Jim Johnson, May 14th. He would face him in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and have no decision in 6 rounds, 1910. Jeff Clark, the Joplin Ghost, November 10th. He would knock him out in 2 rounds. December 26th, he would face Sam McVeigh, Sydney, Australia. He would lose to him 20 rounds. Fascinating. And I just want to give you an overview of Sam Langford. I have him the greatest fighter of all time. Let's just take a quick look of some of his opponents. Sam Langford and Harry Wells. Look how many times he fought Harry Wells. And Harry Wells was one of the most avoided fighters. Jack Dempsey had Harry Wells on a contract and he backed out of it. Sam Langford, Sam McVeigh. Look how many times he would face Sam McVeigh. These are some of the greatest fighters in the entire history of the game. Sam Langford versus Joe Jeanette. Look how many times he would face Joe Jeanette. You have to take a look at that. Sam Langford versus Jim Barry. Look how many times he would face him. He would knock him out several times. Sam Langford versus the Javelin Ghost. Jeff Clark. Fascinating fighter himself. So I have Sam Langford, the greatest fighter in the entire history of the game. Behind him, ranked number 2, I have Harry Greb. Number 3, I have Sugar Ray Robinson. Number 4, Homicide, Henry Armstrong. Perhaps one of the toughest fighters of Sam Langford's career was Joe Jeanette. Joe Jeanette could punch, he could fight. He was one of the most incredible fighters in the entire history of the game. He would also face the Barbados Demon, Joe Walcott, one of the greatest welterweight champions of all time. He would face Jack Johnson, Little Arthur, one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time. Jack Johnson would be colored heavyweight champion and the world heavyweight champion. He had become the colored heavyweight champion when he defeated Denver Ed Martin, and the world heavyweight champion when he defeated Tommy Burns in 1908. Sam Langford, greatest fighter of all times. What do you think? Who do you have? Place in the comment section. This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Thanks for hanging in there with me.